U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
So there's a very famous story about young Joe Biden, Senator Joe Biden.
Daily Wire's audio is
Biden
crazy.
sides with Satan. Biden sides with Satan.
From the early 80s. Apparently, in June 1982, Joe Biden was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The dude's been in the Senate since Cato was in the Senate. And he was the Prime Minister of Israel at the time, Menachem Begin. At the time, Israel was going into Lebanon in order to extirpate terrorism that was coming from southern Lebanon. Again, nothing changes.
Yeah, Cato!
No.
Cato was in Rome.
Oh.
He's saying he was in the Roman Senate, get it? He's
Sure,
old.
Rome.
To the Middle East. And
yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, you're right. Nothing changes when it comes to the Middle East because Israel is doing Israel shit back then, as it's doing Israel shit right now. Whose fault is that, dumbass? Look, notice how he doesn't have to even make. Notice how he doesn't have to even give an argument as to why. We're not going to watch all 53 minutes of this. Okay, that's crazy. I'm just going to go through some of the parts and move on.
Okay, move on faster.
And then he ended up moving to Israel and becoming an underground fighter against the British in an attempt to establish the state of Israel.
An underground fighter? Huh. What is a substitute for the term that Ben is refusing to use there, you guys think?
You know, like the Lion's Den, who aren't terrorists?
Yeah, listen, you don't understand. Zionists can never be called terrorists. They are underground fighters.
No, that's not true. I mean, we put Zionist terrorist groups that are officially recognized terrorist groups
Tunnel
on
Boy.
our tier list.
Yes.
And
Yes,
those two groups are behind the political parties that are in power of Israel now.
But this time, these are not terror tunnels, okay? Like blowing up King David Hotel and killing not only British officers, but also like a shit ton of civilians there. I think it was, what, 61 or 91 people? That was an act of peaceful terrorism.
Killing redcoats.
Remember.
Based.
Because he agrees with it.
And then he was out in the political wilderness for a long time, finally became Prime Minister of Israel. And this is a very famous anecdote. Apparently, he then turned to Joe Biden and he said, "Don't threaten us with cutting off aid to give up our principles."
That's not the story.
Don't threaten us with a good time.
The real story is Joe Biden telling Begin that he should kill more children, basically. And Begin being like, "That's too much. We don't do that." When they were doing that. That's the story, right? Isn't that the story that he's talking about? Settlements at England were
our aid when we were dying in the gas chambers and ovens. Nobody came to our aid when we were striving to create our country. We paid for it. We fought for it. We died for it. We will stand by our principles.
Ben,
we will defend them. And when necessary, we will die for them again.
They didn't know that it was happening.
Yeah, that's retrospective, my friend.
That's why genocides don't happen in the dark anymore. You can debate them, right? But nobody was debating if there was fucking gas chambers and shit when there was gas chambers.
Yeah, nobody knew until like a couple years before, right? Before the end.
Well, they didn't know the extent. Like,
yeah,
I mean, like you have to remember, the soldiers that came across Auschwitz like went out and immediately committed war crimes on Nazis.
Oh,
the American soldiers.
Fair enough. I would say it's justified. I would say
I don't think it was a great game, but they do the epilogue in Call of Duty World War II. You liberate a concentration camp and commit war crimes on Nazis.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and you have like a Jewish guy in your squad too.
Huh.
It's not a great game. Like the original, much better, but it does have that at the end, which I think was a nice touch.
With or without your aid. Now, this story is not about Menachem Begin. This story is about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a coward. Joe Biden is a terrible, terrible voice when it comes to foreign policy, and he always has been. There's a reason that former Obama Defense Secretary Robert Gates said that Joe Biden had literally never been correct on foreign policy in his entire life.
Okay, bro, Bosnia genocide?
Maybe some of the Israelis in the chat can explain that position to me, because like the Red Army did. Fuck it, even the Americans did, but certainly the Red Army did. They were the ones who liberated most of the camps in Eastern Europe.
Talking about?
The Red Army also raped most of the fucking women and children they came across
the Nazis
on their march to Berlin too, you fuckwit.
Now, with the Nazis, right? So, like, the Americans advancing towards Auschwitz, right? By then, like, Nazi war crimes, they're aware of what the Nazis do, right?
Yeah.
Like, they already have reporting on how awful these people are. So it's not like, oh, we didn't know these people did war crimes and did horrific things. They were well aware that this is like, you know, a very immoral enemy.
Yeah.
And still, what they came across and saw at Auschwitz was so bad that they were overcome by emotion, knowing, you know, like they had already seen a lot of shit. They're fighting the Nazis, you know?
Yeah.
So,
because like you know there's the typical photos and stuff you see of Auschwitz. I'm genuinely surprised there isn't like just silent footage, black and white, going through the camps, just like documentation. I just can't believe that there's none of this footage around that I've seen anyway.
There is.
I'm sure that there is. I just haven't found it.
Well, it's like, you know, like part of the conspiracy theory is that like they say that the parts of the camp are fake, and it's like, yeah, they rebuilt them as models. They like
yeah, because it was torn down, it was destroyed. Yeah, it was bombed probably. I'd imagine.
Oh, so the Auschwitz was liberated by the Soviets, not the Americans. It was a different thing.
Oh, really?
It was different camps that they did it on.
Interesting.
The Soviet soldiers attempted to help the survivors and were shocked by the scale of Nazi crimes.
Man, even the Red Army, the army of rape as a weapon of war, was shocked by Nazi war crimes.
As soon as they arrived, the liberating forces, assisted by the Polish Red Cross, tried to help survivors by organizing medical care and food. Red Army hospitals cared for 4,500 survivors. There were efforts to document the camp as late as June 1945. There were still 300 survivors at the camp who were still too weak to be moved.
Too weak to be moved? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the army of rape.
Okay, check this out. Red Army General Vasily Penetrenko, commander of the 107 Infantry Division, remarked, I who saw people dying every day was shocked by the Nazis.
Crazy.
Indiscriminate hatred towards the inmates who had turned to living skeletons. I read about the Nazis' treatment of Jews in various leaflets, but there was nothing about the Nazis' treatment of women, children, and old men. It was in Auschwitz that I found out about the fate of the Jews.
It's pretty insane. And just to reiterate the point, Netanyahu is using this to justify what he's doing. So,
what's that about? What says?
And that is true. And that is true. Joe Biden has a unique capacity to screw up when it comes to foreign policy. Joe Biden is weak-kneed. Joe Biden is so weak that he brags about being the only member of the Obama administration to oppose the bin Laden raid. That's how weak Joe Biden is. Well, now Joe Biden is showing his neck to Hamas. And when you talk about unjustifiable acts on every possible level, moral, political, pragmatic, none of it makes any sense. On the moral level, Hamas is a terrorist.
I hope he's going to talk about Israel's actions now, right? Like unjustifiable in every sense of the word.
That is currently holding 5 Americans. There are 5 Americans who are being held in terror.
Israel is a terrorist group currently holding approximately 10,000 Palestinians, which include children as well, and women.
Tunnels by Yahya Sinwar and his group of barbaric thugs. Their names. I know that Joe Biden doesn't mention their names very often. He will talk about Brittany Griner until the cows come home. But when it comes to 5 Americans who happen to be Jewish who are being held by Hamas in terror tunnels.
It's so funny for Ben to say this because
they're in Israel.
the only way to facilitate the release of those Americans is by
Ben, they're in Israel, aren't they?
I don't know
What do
how
you?
this.
Huh?
I don't know how this because they have their own embedded player, right? But so this is Dachau concentration camp and its liberation by U.S. troops, right? So this is like History Channel, right? And they like have like they're taking the people who actually liberated the camp back there and doing like a documentary talking about it. But there's also like some pictures in here, like first the smell, then the death train, right? And it's just you can see the bodies on the train, bodies stacked like cordwood. These are just clothing, right? So in a fit of rage, soldiers gunned down Nazi prisoners. It was like a lightning fuse that couldn't be snuffed out. They'd been in combat for 500 days and thought they had witnessed every grisly atrocity the war could throw at them. But then there was the train filled with innocent bodies, their eyes and mouths open as if they were crying out for mercy. Many of the American soldiers broke down in sobs, others seethed with red-hot rage. When 4 German officers emerged from the woods holding up white flags and a handkerchief, Lieutenant William Lodge marched them into one of the boxcars, literally corpses, and shot them with his pistol. When the mortally wounded Germans cried out in agony, other American GIs finished the job.
I was going to say, hopefully they didn't. Hopefully they shot them in the legs and let them suffer. God damn.
Oh, look, they literally put them against the wall.
No shit.
And like machine gunned a bunch of. They took prisoners and machine gunned them all down. An estimated 50 to 125. Including hospital personnel, were rounded up in the coal yard. Walsh called for a machine gun, rifles, and a Tommy gunner. When the soldiers began loading the belt of bullets into the machine gun, the German prisoners stood up and began to move toward their American captors. That's when Walsh allegedly took out his pistol and yelled, "Let him have it."
But
unequipped to help the survivors.
You know what though? Anybody, and this is what I've heard was the reputation after this all came out, after they were like cleaning up. Anybody with an SS uniform, a bullet to the head. There was no prisoners for SS. There was just you.
Any other
you're
questions
dead.
about your loan with maybe Federal Credit Union?
All good. Thanks again for answering my call. I know it's late back home.
Not hear this, but read this. So it's decades later. Some of these soldiers were racked with guilt over the revulsion they first felt when seeing the prisoner, and they were killing them with kindness. So they were nice to some of the prisoners they took.
The Nazis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Oh, they're talking about the prisoners that were still alive. So they overfed them there, and they said they were killing them with kindness.
Oh, yes, yes. You've got to nurse them back to be able to eat.
Further compounding the guilt, they couldn't let them actually leave. They had to be nursed back to health first, which would take months. Tragically, some of the Jewish prisoners liberated from there died there still years before being allowed to emerge in the United States and Palestine.
Huh.
A ceasefire, and the only people currently on the planet that are standing against that is not even the American state. It's just Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet. Like tens of thousands of Jews in Israel do not agree with Benny Boy here. Obviously, the entire Western world doesn't agree with Benny Boy here at this point. Literally, he is just alone. And until recently, Joe Biden was on Benny Boy's side, but that was pretty much it. The idea that like there's some magical way of like releasing these hostages, and it's just Hamas that's like refusing to give them up is so stupid. Israel and the war cabinet specifically is the only reason why those hostages have not been released and will probably fucking die under Israeli rockets.
Then he won't mention their names. He'll take the occasional photo op with their relatives
the
and pretend he's going to stand by them, as we'll learn in a moment.
The end of this article is General Eisenhower before he's president and Patton going to a camp, right? And Eisenhower says, the things I saw beggar description. The visual evidence and verbal testimony of the starvation, cruelty, and it's bestiality, not like it's like BES, not BEAS. We're so is there a difference? I don't know. We're so overwhelming it left as to leave me a bit sick. I made the visit deliberately in order to be in a position to give firsthand evidence of these things if ever in the future there develops a tendency to change these allegations merely to propaganda.
Oh. Interesting. Well,
it's like literally I had to see it so when people deny it, I can tell them to shut the fuck up.
That's actually fairly respectable, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Like, you want to witness it yourself so that the simple denial of it disgusts you.
And meanwhile,
to the point that you will
Netanyahu
up. Yeah.
is basically a Holocaust denier.
Yeah, yeah.
He ain't stand by nobody. Their names are Eden Alexander, who is 19 years.
By the way,
hey, fun, huh? I mean, it is kind of.
Once again,
you have more than enough to hire competent hackers in regional competition.
Swallow your food.
Early, when I said Israel absolutely, and defenders of Israel absolutely in the Western world especially, is using these hostages as a fucking reason as to why they will enact righteous cruelty upon the entirety of the Palestinian population as simply a talking point. There's no better example in this, because Biden refusing to give 2,000-pound bombs to Israel, unironically, is better for the betterment of the hostages. Like, him being like, dude, we're not giving you bunker busters because you're literally wiping out the entire Gaza Strip, including with the hostages inside of the Gaza Strip. We have to put an end to this somehow, is unironically a decent way to try and stop Israel from killing more hostages. Ben, on the other hand, is claiming that this is done against the hostages' best interest. With respect to the Holocaust, yeah, in general, he's referring to how it took too long to intervene, and also that they refused to take refugees. With respect to the 48 war, aside from Czechoslovakia, there really wasn't much external support as far as I know. And those first years, Israel's diplomatic relations were difficult because the Arab League boycott, which made many countries, Germany, for instance, reluctant to normalize relations. Czechoslovakia is where they got the fucking illegal weapons from, right? That they were able to get all the guns that they could use against the Arab villages.
Yeah, the Czech Republic are still arms dealers.
Yeah, always have been.
That's
probably always will be.
That's what they're known for.
I think it was definitely Czechoslovakia.
It was. They helped Saddam.
Why is this
years old? Omer Nutra, who is 22. Hirsch Goldberg Poland, who is 23. Saggy Dekel Czech.
Whoever makes this channel needs to do editing better.
And who is 30.
Like, why?
Years old. Omer Nutra, who is 22. Hirsch Goldberg Poland, who is 23.
Why is
Saggy
that in
Dekel
there?
Chen, who is 35. And Keith Siegel, who is 64. They're currently being held, and Joe Biden does not give two good damns about any of those people. On a moral level, Joe Biden attempting to preserve Hamas in Rafah is sick. On a political level, it is political malpractice. The American people do not like Hamas. The American people do not like this conflict, but they like Hamas even less than they like this conflict. They would like to see Israel finish this. The American people are tired of watching this war go on, wherein Israel is supposed to take it super slow. It never ends. What America likes are wars that are short. America likes wars that are victorious. And those are things Joe Biden has never been involved in. And when it comes to the pragmatic, what Joe Biden is doing right now is the least pragmatic thing I've ever seen a politician do on foreign policy. He has created an entire incentive structure for Hamas to walk away from the table.
Bro, Trump
has created an incentive structure for Hezbollah to get into a...
Literally handed over large swaths of the Middle East to the IRGC. What the fuck are you talking about, bro?
War with Israel. He has created an incentive structure whereby, by the way, if Israel goes in, more civilians will die. So what am I talking about here? Yesterday, in what had been a telegraphed move for the last week or so, Joe Biden went on Aaron Burnett's show on CNN, and he proceeded to announce that the United States would remove offensive weaponry from Israel. Remember, he just signed a bill.
Dude, it's crazy.
No.
I'm listening to this, and the only thing I can hear, like I'm listening to this screeching as this man, right? And literally the only thing I can hear is this.
Awful execution of a soundbite. Way too loud. All you needed was something very, very short and sharp, like a wham.
Oh, I mean, sure, Turkey benefited from Trump too, I guess, but not like Iran did.
All right, it's on. We get it. Oh my god, it's
shit
still
tape.
going.
Stop.
Dude,
Stinky shit tape.
how is it still going? It was
'Cause
like
you're
30.
rewinding.
No. I was just curious how long it went for because I hit it 4 times. And it was going for about 10 seconds before. That's a 30-second soundbite. Bro, chill out. That's bad.
Arms manufacturers love long wars. Yeah, that is true.
Oh my god,
It's just
shut
like he's just like,
up.
"Why don't you
Bro,
give
they're gonna
Israel
make
all
their
the
bag
weapons it needs, even though
regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
shut the fuck up. You have been doing so for
Again,
months.
fucking Saudi Arabia is buying way more guns than all these other people. Saudi Arabia alone is floating the arms industry, you dumbass.
Why? Give Israel all the guns.
We're the United States
I
of
love
America,
Israel
for
so
God's
much.
sake.
Give them all the guns.
They're not though.
$14 billion in aid to Israel. That bill combined $14 billion in aid to Israel with some $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. And the way that Biden got it over the finish line, along with Speaker Johnson in the House, was by
It should have been 70, not even. It should have been 73 billion to Ukraine and
Nothing
a
for
billion
Israel.
to
A
Palestine.
big stinky lump of coal.
One lump of coal.
combining those elements. Because it turns out that the Republicans are disproportionately anti-Ukraine aid, but pro-Israel aid. And Democrats are disproportionately anti-Israel aid, but pro-Ukraine aid.
Like
Joe Biden has decided unilaterally.
Like he also, like the IRGC hates him and wants to kill him because they killed Soleimani. But like months before that, he was fucking handing territory over to the guy. And like too stupid to fucking realize it. And like when he pulls out and people are like, whoa, what are you doing? You're going to create a vacuum. He's like, we're 10,000 miles away. I don't know what the actual distance of. And he's like, I don't care who wants to take it over, whether it's Iran, Vladimir Putin, or Napoleon Bonaparte. We're 2,000 miles away. They can fight over sand. And like, you know the territory you're leaving are mountains, right?
That in violation of the Impoundment Control Act of 1974.
Johnson credit for this? Yeah, because Johnson literally held up that aid, buddy.
Simply going to hold up the shipments of weaponry.
Every single lethal aid package that has gone into Israel is in direct violation of America's own rules and restrictions that
No,
they
it's
set
not.
forward.
Shut up. Rules
that
don't.
dictate,
the rules don't matter.
Under the
The
Leahy
rules
Act.
do not matter
To Israel or in general?
to America. America has its own fucking rules, bro.
We're the United States of America, for God's sake.
The chair will advise that the rules do care.
That no weapons transfers being made to a foreign nation, a foreign ally, can be used in committing international human rights abuses. You cannot do war crimes with American weapons. Now, of course, all of our allies commit war crimes with our weapons all the time. That's a joke. But the idea that Joe Biden has no legal basis, the idea that Joe Biden has no legal basis whatsoever to restrict weapons transfers to Israel is ridiculous. There is also subsequently an investigation that America put a timeline on their own for Israel to deliver information on what they were doing with the American weapons. We literally told them yesterday was the deadline, by the way, for this, that by yesterday, Israel has to give a full report on how every single weapon has been used to ensure that no war crimes have been committed.
Yes.
We have now delayed the release of this investigation. Part of the reason why I suspect delayed the release of this investigation is because it puts into legal doctrine, or it puts into legally enforceable contracts directly our culpability in Israel's violations of human rights. Just letting you know that there is more to this conversation than what Ben Shapiro is crying about.
Wow.
Did you know Ben Shapiro is leaving out context? No way. Why is this left
to Israel
in?
over disagreements with how Israel is prosecuting the war. No, by the way, it is yet to articulate exactly what Israel
Fucking
could be
Jesus
doing better
Christ.
right now.
Check out this little
None of that
short
matters,
video I
because we'll get to
sent
his real
you
agenda
on another tab.
in just a few minutes.
Let
We'll
me
get to
know
more
what
on
you
this in a
think.
moment. First,
Available.
once again, the United
You slut.
States won't resupply Israel then
You
and kill
fucking
terrorists.
whore.
Thing today. Trust me,
You
Pure Talk with my own phone calls for years. You should do the same.
dirty slut.
Burnett. And he proceeds to say that he's going to deny Israel offensive weaponry
Good.
if Israel goes into the quote unquote populated areas of
Czechoslovakia sold Israel some aircraft like Spitfires.
I'm done
and
with
fuck
this.
ton of
I'm
Mountain
over it.
P-18s.
I can't do either one of these idiots anymore. Can we go back to Emma having moderate?
Come see us in Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, Irvine, California.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?